Yellow Rabbit Film Study presents Donnie Darko and the Ethical Quandaries of Time Travel. No context spoilers, but then a lot of spoilers, and I'll assume you've seen the movie. Why are you wearing that bunny suit? Why are you wearing that human suit? That part was super cool. I mean, that sums it up pretty clearly if you ask me. Donnie is getting old. They should call him Donald Darko. Yikes, I mean, that was easily my worst joke so far. Please send help. But thankfully, there is a point here. This movie is old, but it doesn't feel old. Why is that? Aside from being a cult classic, it has become a bit of a time capsule, +2 for already working in a time reference, for American teenage drama, angst, and morality. Which is cool. I mean, I think this movie will always be at least a little relevant, at least until we have actual time travel. Time travel. Let's talk about that. Should you do it? Did Donald do the right thing? Hard to say. You need to have a moral grounding to base the morality of the choices on. So here's an example. Utilitarianism. Think about this as when you do the most good for the most number of people in a group, good coming from the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. And let's look at what Donnie did with that. Here's utilitarian Donnie. If an airplane hits me in the face, I can save everyone else's faces, but mostly Gretchen's face because I like her face the most. And this is his eventual conclusion after a lot of, babbity-rabbity stuff, but is it really the case? Did he do the most good? In his mind, one Donnie equals a mom and a Gretchen and a sister, and it seems like a fair trade from him, and it just comes from the switch of one plane over the other. But what is he, I mean, maybe it's hard to say at this point, but what is he giving up, you might ask? Well, other than, dying, what about catching that Patrick Swayze criminal? What about helping that girl everybody was mean to? What about Gretchen's relationship? Better to have loved and lost, never than love at all, yada yada. What about the loss of a son, a brother, a bright student? Who's Donnie to decide the fate of another? He didn't take a vote. He didn't even ask a second opinion. Maybe Gretchen wanted to be in that relationship more than anything else. He was the cutest boy in class, after all, no matter how it was going to end. See what I mean? The problem with time travel isn't really anything different other than having a do-over. It's the do-over is really just a variation. And oftentimes a variation is something you're already conscious of, especially if you're trying to time travel about it when you're making that choice. If choices create deviation and we can't see everything with omnipotence, even with time travel, then what's the point? Here's the point. The burden of grief is fundamental to an existence with choice, regardless of the number of choices. There's no way to game plan your life via the use of time travel or anything else for that matter to make it go the way you want. Because no matter what you do, you don't know what will or can happen, and chances are you don't know what you want, even after it happens. So now you're probably thinking, yikes, that's a sad boy turkey downer. This isn't the vibe I'm looking for right now. There's enough existential dread in a modern society that places the burden of group responsibility on the actions of the individual, which seems noble but placates to an irrational correlation between self-worth and external success with measurements dictated by the very group that the individual is trying to act on behalf of, which, if you're lucky, will lead to a mild form of anxiety, but is far more likely to cause a crippling sense of depression that leads to further isolation from the group you have to act on behalf of, creating a negative feedback loop that society reinforces to such a degree that it starts to seem like a good and necessary idea to talk to a bunny in your mirror. But really, the best part here is it's not like that. Your choices do matter, will matter, and continue to matter. They reverberate throughout time. And you don't have to get all of them right. In fact, even if you had time travel, you're not going to. The burden of perfection isn't on anyone. The sky isn't falling, the world is happening. And maybe this is a little sentimental, but hey, life is short. Who knows what will happen next? You matter, and I'm thankful that you're here. Thanks for watching Yellow Rabbit Film Study.